build your new home, now is the time to get going. Gittins & Gittins Real Estate Agents are here to take you to that place of your dreams. Let us take you home. We help you find that rental to rest along the way or journey with you to find your home destination. Investors and commercial enterprises too, call us and we'll walk the distance to place your business in just the right location. Owners, leave the headaches to us. We'll find your tenants or buyers while you stay at home. We'll even manage your property at your bidding. Anything real estate, come home to Gittins & Gittins Real Estate. Call us at 760-3280 or 747-1220 or visit us at 16 Fifth Street in Woodbrook.
WESN.
Hello everybody, welcome to the program. This is 10 Questions here on WESN. Well, my guest for this edition of the program is none other than a man named Mr. Steve Cadiz. How many of you will remember him? He was somebody who came out of, well, I'm going to say nowhere, but came out of privacy and became a national figure in a short time because of the positions he took and the mobilizations he made about crime in Trinidad and Tobago more than 2 decades ago. Well, this is the situation. We're wondering, what is he up to? What is he doing? How is he responding to the fact that, well, there doesn't seem to be any answer really that tends to even begin to fix the crime problem in Trinidad and Tobago. Steve, good to have you.
Yes, Andy, a pleasure. Always great to see you. Yes.
Yeah. All right. So, well let's talk about it a little bit. The fact that you became a national figure because of your refusal to accept the crime situation as it was at, more than a decade ago.
Yeah, that would have been 2005.
Right, yeah. Exactly. That's 2 decades ago and 2 years.
Yeah.
What is your sort of general statement about what is happening now as compared to then when you put everything else down and focused on that for a while, and you became a national figure because of your refusal to accept crime as it was then?
Yeah, I mean, I think basically where we are today is exactly where we were in 2005. I don't think that there's been any, in fact, it's gotten worse. And I don't think that any administration has really and truly determined what the real fix is for dealing with crime. You know, there's nothing that the legislation, there's nothing new with the way the protective services operate. You know, and I think people have become so, you know, accustomed to it, and that is the danger when the population accepts it and says, well, what are you going to do? You know, that's how it is. You know, for 25 years, 30 years, it has been happening. So it means that there's no real answer to it. And I don't think that we have had administrations that have taken crime seriously. You know, they've dealt with other things, but it seems as though that crime is somebody else's problem. And therefore, if you know, the danger in an administration trying to do something about crime is that they fail after doing a number of things, then the population says, well, you know, you're failures. You tried and it didn't work, so too bad, goodbye, you know, bring somebody else. So I don't know. I mean, I don't know in the psyche of a politician how this thing is supposed to work. All I know is that it is, whatever has been done, it is not working, and therefore we need to really and truly break that glass and determine how are we doing this, because it can be done. I mean, I was reading an article the other day on New York City, and the broken windows syndrome, as to if every day you wake up and the place looks like how it looked yesterday and there's no change in anything, then it means that it will continue like how it is. And crime in Trinidad has been part of that broken syndrome system. So I don't know, Andy. I'm going to be 74 this year, and I think that, in my lifetime, I thought that we would have been able to see a Trinidad and Tobago where crime was probably so low on the list of issues, and yet still it is the number one and has been the number one issue through successive administrations. And we seem to be immune. We seem to be not wanting to. We don't seem to want to rock the boat. I hear people talking about, we'll bring back the death penalty. And this current administration is serious about bringing back the death penalty. And I continue to ask the question, and what exactly is the death penalty going to do? That is not something that a criminal who's hell-bent on doing whatever, breaking the law in any which way, they are not taking that on. The people who mowed down the 3 people yesterday in Belmont, you really think that they taking on the death penalty? The only thing that a criminal is scared of is being caught, Forget the sentencing. He's not even thinking about that. His only thing is, I wonder if they could catch me.
And it seems that I think that is one facet of it. The issue of these drive-by shootings, how they seem to be set up, how they know where somebody would be standing or sitting on any given day at any given time. That was the case with the latest one with the man and his baby. That seems to be a pattern.
Well, I'm not saying they're taking it out of the movies, but the drug business in Trinidad is a major proponent, or propellant of in driving crime. And what is done in other jurisdictions where illegal drugs are a major problem, again, they will just, the local contingent will just follow suit. And whether it is drive-by, we know we have been reading about drive-by shootings in Colombia and Mexico for decades. Maybe it is only now it is becoming the in thing, the newest thing in the illegal drug world, drive-by shootings. But in drive-by shootings, you go for one person, and like what happened in Belmont, you have three people being killed by it. And that is a dangerous place we are reaching. Very, very dangerous.
You say we are reaching, you don't think we're there already and past being there?
Well, I would say yes, because the drug business is probably the most lucrative, largest return on investment, if you want to call it a business, and therefore people are liking to do that and to become criminals and become drug dealers because of the returns. And unless you can take the money out of it, it will be there. They brought in laws to deal with 3 marijuana plants. You could have 3 marijuana plants in your yard, and that's legal. But that has no money. That does not have the money in it that cocaine and other imported illegal drugs have. So how are you taking the money out of it? That is one of the things. I don't know of any new legislation whereby, where does a successful drug dealer, where does he park up these tens of millions of dollars? What, he has it at home? And if he has it at home and you know where he's living, then why is he still outside? The last 2 drug dealers that were arrested by the Americans in Trinidad when they flew in. These two people were living in Goodwood Park. You know, one of the most wealthy neighborhoods in Trinidad is Goodwood Park, and these two guys separately but are living in houses in Goodwood Park, and the American authorities flew in here, jumped in a car at Piarco, drove straight to the place, picked them up, went back, jumped on the plane, and headed out. Why is it that our local authorities, how come we don't have that same information? You know, I mean, I know I'm jumping around, but it really begs the question. You know, do we have the wherewithal to take, for instance, the money out of the drug business? Do we have it?
What is required to do that?
And you know, the hard part about that, every single imported drug in this country is paid for in US dollars, cash. And yet still, you and I go to the bank, and we go into Barbados or we go into Miami, and we have to stand up in line for $200 US in cash, if you're lucky. And these guys are rolling in US cash, and nobody knows? That cannot be. So my point with that is, just like 20-something years ago with Keith Noel, there are people obviously in authority who are very much aware of what is happening and are therefore able to protect these people. That has to be one of the issues. The drug business in Trinidad cannot be running by itself with no involvement from the authorities.
And you think it's a failure on the part of the authorities to, as you're saying there, to analyze it down to that and treat with that in a way that is not taking place now?
Well, that to me makes a hell of a lot of sense. You know, we have this thing about, you know, we make headlines if we go and we shoot down 4 bandits in Conopia, the Tall Boots gang or whatever their name is, you know, and we're making full headlines, and we have visits by the commissioner of police going to the site and all this sort of thing. That is all well and good. But where is the money in the crime? The money in the crime is not going into somebody's house and stealing their television set. That is not where the money is. The hundreds of millions of US dollars involved in the drug trade in Trinidad is with just that, with drugs. And if you put your efforts into, you'll never eliminate it, because there's a public that wants it. So you'll never eliminate it, but at least you can get rid of a lot of it and make it very, very difficult for people. And eventually it will just disappear.
And how do you see the getting rid of to take place?
Sorry, how do you see
the getting rid of it? What's the mechanism that you see has to be employed? Okay,
well, again, as I said before, how are you going to get the money out of the system? How are you going to get money out of the drug trade in Trinidad? There has to be a way that can happen. And maybe that is not a police decision to make, because you maybe need people who are bankers, who are, it's right now it is working for the drug dealers. So find a way. I can't answer that, but there has to be a way in which you can cap off that. You can start putting pressure on the people who are dealing with the money. And just like the American authorities coming down here and huffing up 2 guys and taking them up to the States for trial, use your Interpol, use your DEA, use the MI5 or whatever it is in England, because Trinidad is not alone. The drug business is a major international business. You have drugs coming through the ports here in Trinidad going to Europe. It's not only drugs coming into Trinidad for Trinidad, it's a transshipment point. Yeah, I remember reading some time ago they had I think an LNG tanker come down here, and they stopped it, and they sent scuba divers under the hull, and there were drugs fastened onto the hull, you know. And whether or not that LNG tanker was going to Europe, I can't remember where it was going, but But these people are brilliant people. These people, they secure their business. The drug people secure their business. And Trinidad has not been able to infiltrate. Trinidad has not been able to find a reasonable avenue to go down to really and truly harass these people. And if you make it so easy for them, they're going to stay in Trinidad. They're not going anywhere else.
And nobody in that movement, if we can call it a movement, feels intimidated by anything the authorities are doing, have been doing, have done.
No. And the drug business, I mean, if you look at the drug business in Colombia and Mexico, these guys buy from the head honcho in government. And I'm not saying that is what has happened here in Trinidad, huh? But there's a way in which they do it. And of course, money talks, like in many things. And they can buy their way into banking. They can buy their way into the political system. They can buy their way into the security services. They're not working alone. You know, but we have to open our eyes to see what is going on. How does this thing do? Is there anybody in Trinidad that truly understands how the illegal drug trade operates, and who are the people they have to get involved? Whether it is customs, whether it is the police, the judiciary, who has to be involved? Banking, who has to be involved with you to run a successful drug business? Let's start with that. And try and find those answers, because what applies in Medellin and what implies in Mexico, Peru, Venezuela, anywhere, all of it is going to be the same format. They're going to see the same basic structure of a successful illegal drug trade, and it's no different.
Yeah. So this edition, if you want to call it that, of the implementation of a state of emergency, that is demonstrating itself as not working.
Correct. Because to declare a state of emergency and then do nothing with it, I don't know how anybody figured that makes any sense at all. Because they're not. I mean, I remember former Attorney General Faris Alwari in 2021, I believe it was, who stood up in the parliament and said there are 1,421 gang members. You heard that? Not approximately 1,000, not more than 800, not slightly less than 2,000, 1,421 gang members. And excuse that noise, those are coquelicos flying by.
Yes, okay.
All right.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so if he was able to bring it down to the one, he obviously has some information. What was done with that information? And Andy, that is my beef with all of this. Everybody says we know and we doing and we this and we that and then boom, nothing, absolutely nothing happened. It just goes cold until the newspapers find another headline about who vexing CARICOM or something like that, and then it's business as usual.
Yeah. Going back to that, you're not seeing enough intelligence, is it, among the people whose responsibility is that big? But the issue of the drive-by shooting, that seems to be a phenomenon that is at work as we speak. That is one style of getting at people for whatever reason.
Right, and if you read anything about the drug trade, or look at any of the documentaries, etc., you're going to see where drive-by shooting is a major part. Decades ago in Colombia, when the trade was really, oh God, what's his name? Anyway, the big drug dealer in Colombia, when they had the drug wars there,
yeah.
Guys used to be riding up on motorcycles and coming alongside your car, and if you were a person of interest to them, they come alongside with a pillion rider on the motorcycle, and he's the one with the gun, and they just come right up alongside and execute you right there in the traffic and take off. I mean, that was a common way of getting rid of people that they didn't want involved in their business. So again, I don't think that Trinidad has to go back too far to figure out how to deal with a drug trade as big as ours. I mean, we have 1.4 million people on this island. The island is a very, very, 2,700 square kilometers is the size of the island, and we can't protect our borders. There is nothing going on to say that major attempts are being made to, one, stifle the drug trade. You might not stop it, but you might move it offshore to somewhere else. And at least your country is better off. Your population is a lot safer. But there is nothing, I don't see that there's anything being done about that. Andy, when I was Minister of Transport, we brought to the Parliament the Motor Vehicle Authority Act, which was a major piece of legislation that dealt with numerous things regarding vehicles. I keep maintaining every single kilo of illegal drugs, every illegal firearm, every box of ammunition is not moved by a bicycle. Okay, it's not a guy riding along the road on a Humber bicycle. Okay, it is a motor car. The same thing with the drive-by shootings. That Motor Vehicle Authority Act had major changes in our legislation, where as far as tracking vehicles and putting, with special license plates and all this sort of thing, and that was thrown out. Okay, it was the last of the People's Partnership government, and that was it. And for the next 10 years, that Motor Vehicle Authority Act is still sitting down in a filing cabinet somewhere, and nobody has picked it up. This current administration, we brought it in 2010 under the same Prime Minister. This current administration, I don't think anybody even knows about the Motor Vehicle Authority Act, which would give the authorities a lot more control over the movement of vehicles and that sort of thing. Okay, I can't go into it because it's too long, but it changes the way in which your transport industry operates, and Trinidad needs that. So again, there's a whole host of things that have to be done leading up to the being actually able to succeed in dealing with illegal drugs. And until you send these illegal drugs offshore, we are going to have drive-by shootings. It's going to get worse. I mean, look at that issue with the San Fernando Municipal Police Station.
Yeah.
And Andy, I mean, come on. You really expect the population to accept the fact that, oh, well, and, blaming this one and blaming that one? How many? So you had the Municipal Police Station in San Fernando. You had the San Fernando Central Police Station involved. You had a statement being made by the police that, well, maybe there are issues dealing with the storage of firearms in police stations that should be looked into. Where is the full audit of every single police station in Trinidad that has an armory, that secures weapons for people? Where is that island-wide audit? Has that been conducted? Or is it only San Fernando that has the problem? I have friends who, when they take their gun and they deposit it in the police station because they're traveling or something like that, the first thing they do when they come back is to check to see if that firearm was fired whilst it was being stored there, because they know that goes on. So again, we're dealing with a very, very broken system, and it is going to take an awful lot of work to fix it. But we could have started 20 years ago, and today we would not be living with the drive-by shootings that we have now.
Yeah, and as someone who was in a part of the administration dealing with this devil that we face now, 2 decades ago, to what extent you are even a resource person talking with people whose hands are on the buttons now as to what ought to be done that is not being done, or what ought to be done better than is taking place now? Why you in any kind of a group of people who...
No. You have two ministers of national security. Not one, two. You have a National Security Council that should be meeting every week, chaired by the Prime Minister. You have a Coast Guard that is still alongside in Stowbells Bay, meaning that the very few Coast Guard vessels that are either seaworthy or they don't have the manpower, they don't have the fuel. I remember hearing that story years ago, that coming down to the end of the budget, the fiscal year, Coast Guard had to park up because they had no fuel. The fuel allotment had run out, and they just leave the vessels alongside. So you have 4,000 servicemen in Tetron, or Tetro and a couple of the other the other camps. Yeah. 4,000. You have all of these resources, Andy, and what? How are you utilizing the resources? You're doing the same thing you did 20 years ago. You're doing the same thing you did when Burroughs was the man in charge, going around the place and shooting people and what have you. Okay? That is the same modus operandi of the security forces. And you expect to have a huge success in destroying the illegal drug trade in Trinidad by doing the same thing you've been doing for the last 30, 40 years. It can't happen. It doesn't work like that. The technology has changed. You have people who could build a gun. Okay, it can't work using what they call it, printer. Okay? You have, everything has changed. Everything has gone 90 degrees to what it was before. And you still operating. The only thing you change is, I don't mean to be this simplistic and sound stupid, but the only thing that you have changed is put your police officers in long pants. Sorry to say.
Yes. There's no sort of forum at which somebody like yourself, who was there and who's done that, can exchange ideas and issues and put stuff on the table for the people whose responsibility it is to find a solution?
One of the critical pieces of equipment that Trinidad installed, I guess, 15 years ago, maybe longer than that, was the 360-degree radar system. I met the guy when I was in government, the representative of the company, and he told me Trinidad at that time was one of 10 countries in the world that utilized that system. 10! And we were one of them where 90% of the coastline of this country could be monitored. You could see a pirogue in the water, you could see a light airplane flying low, whatever you wanted to see, you could see. Okay? And is that radar system still functional? Has it been upgraded from 15, 20 years ago? How is it utilized? Because the majority of the drug trade comes from the mainland. Trinidad and Venezuela are 9 miles apart in the Grand Bocas. 9 miles.
Yeah.
A fella swam it a couple of years ago between Trinidad and Venezuela. So that just shows how critical it is to have the systems to be able to monitor that because of this very, very narrow channel that separates the two countries. Okay? But you have a radar system that could assist. You have a Coast Guard vessel that you should always be at sea, not parked up in Stowbells Bay. You have a 4,000-man regiment that should be all over the coastline of this country. Okay? All the known areas and what have you. You have a police service, a complement of 7,000 officers. So it's not to say that you don't have the resources. Huh? You have the manpower, resources, more than what would be required. What we need to do is start is change that from this brawn and start bringing brains into the system. Because it is the brains that are going to cut off the head of the drug trade in Trinidad. It's not the brawn.
And what about the arguments that some of the the vessels that have been bombed out of existence were not definitely, surely, drug travelers or drug transporters.
Yeah, I mean, I don't subscribe to anything like that, or where a country will take it upon themselves to go into other people's territories and just start doing that, eliminating what they believe to be people in the drug trade. I don't think that's right. That you have all kinds of international laws being broken there, but we know who we're dealing with, and that is how it is. And nobody has raised their hand. You realize that? Huh? I don't know of any leader within our sphere that has raised their hand to say that is illegal, that cannot be. We're going to take it to the international court. But anyway, I think that's besides the point. The fact that you cannot control your borders, your marine borders, just says an awful lot. I mean, Trinidad has had a history of smuggling coming in from Venezuela. Whether it is queso blanco, whether it is scotch, whether it is Venezuelan rum, you name it. Okay, I saw a story the other day that with a cow. Okay, a cow was in a pirogue coming across from Venezuela. So it's not to say that that is a new phenomenon. Again, that is a generational issue. From donkey years, this thing has been going on. Where is the security on the southwest coast? How much security is there down there? How many Coast Guard vessels do they have parked in Caracas, ready or on patrol down there? You know, so, you know, you say you want to do it. You say you put in all the effort and what have you into dealing with the drug trade and this criminal activity on shore. But how? What systems are you using to make that change? Because if you're doing the same thing that the queso blanco was coming in and how it was coming in, then you're just mouthing off things. You're just looking for a headline in the papers, but you're doing absolutely nothing to deal with it.
Yeah, and so those things are missing in this reputed attempt to address the issue of drug trafficking between Venezuela and here. The real essence of what is required is not being implemented.
No, I mean, okay, so that's the drug trade. Okay, not all criminals involved in the drug trade. When COVID hit, and you had 15-year-olds and 14-year-olds who were in school at the time, in secondary school. COVID hits in 2021 or whenever. And for 2 years, those kids are out of school. So the 15-year-old, when the COVID restrictions were lifted, is now 17 years old. Where did that child go? Was there any provision made that they would finish their education at age 17, sit in an exam? What they're going to do? You close the, and I'm going back far now, huh? You close the railroad. That is a whole vocational school gone there, okay?
Yeah.
Training. You close Caroni, same thing, okay? The training institutes, Caroni's in-house training for the machinists and fitters and what have you.
Yeah.
You close Petrotrin, same thing. You close the Shagaramas Hotel School. Okay, I remember as a member of parliament, a lady coming to me and say, Minister, if it was not for the hotel school in Shagaramas, my son, I do not know where he would be. Because the only thing you need, as far as I understand the requirement to go into the, to be able to go to the Shagaramas hotel school was to be able to read and write. Okay? You didn't need O-levels or whatever it is these days or any kind of university degree or anything like that. You know, these were very well-run schools that the children who were not going to become doctors and lawyers, okay, that they would have an opportunity. Where is that now? Where do these kids go?
You're saying that to say that there are these faults in the system, these gaps in executive action that should have been putting these things in place, and that is not happening.
No, but, and again, this is not a quick fix, you know. These are things that any administration would have to be looking at, okay? How are we dealing with education, for instance? Because if I can't earn $1 doing legitimate work and what have you, and the drug man on the corner says, come, I have a job, you'll get $1,000 for the job. I don't know what they pay. I have no idea. But there's a remuneration package there for you. What you going to do? You know, and if you don't have places for these kids to go and to really and say, no, I am good where I am. I don't need your assistance with anything, all right? So, again, so since 2001, 2002, COVID restrictions were lifted, I think 2002. Again, we in 2020, 2026 now. What happened over the last 4 years? All right? So, when you want to know about drive-by shootings and when you want to know about people getting involved in all kinds of illegal activities and what have you, you need to look at the lay of the land. Where are the opportunities for young people? Where are opportunities for young people who don't finish formal education? What are we doing with them? Just leave them on the block, leave them in the neighborhoods, in the communities to do what? Drive taxi? How many taxi drivers, how much PH you going to have in this country? You can't fit any more on the road than what you have now. You know, so the fix that I'm talking about is a holistic fix. You have to deal with everything, and at the same time, you have to protect the citizens of the country. You have to make this island secure, and I don't see any of that going on, okay? There is no, and therefore you're going to continue to have the waves. Every year there's what, 21,000 children sitting the SCA, okay? How many don't make the papers? How many don't have ribbons being pinned on them and put around their neck and what have you? Out of that 21,000, it's thousands of children every single year just being left alone. So you're building a society that has, you know, very little formal education. They don't know any better. Then the whole cycle starts. They start having children and what have you, and the same thing, and it just continues. And I haven't seen an administration that realizes that we have real problems there, and we need to deal with it. It's just not happening.
Yeah, and you're not aware of any kind of in-house discussions that take place with the decision makers, with the people in the administration to address some of these emergency issues. You're not seeing that?
Well, I would like somebody to tell me I am totally wrong, that there's an awful lot going on behind the scenes. I don't hear about it. I don't see it reflected in budgets. The budget, the last thing they did for education in Trinidad was what? Give 21,000 students screens. For what?
Yeah.
Children need to read. Children need to read books. And you pass through all of that. You know, but you're giving them screens, figuring that is going to be the solution to all the education problems in the country. It is not. And therefore, we have to have a serious conversation with our people as to how is this thing going to be fixed? Because what you are doing, this current administration is going to they spent 1 year already, you're going to spend the next 4 years. And you're going to end up right where you started. Not in a good place.
You're seeing signs of that already?
Well, what I'm not seeing are the signs of true engagement, okay, and with the citizens of the country. This is how we're going to be doing this. The first thing you do when you go into office, and I mean, I don't mean to go down that road right now, huh? But the first thing you do when you get into office is the laying off of all the CPEP workers. Anybody in government understands what a CPEP worker and how critical that job is for the most part. Huh? I'm not talking about the fraud in CPEP. They could have dealt with that fraud in CPEP in the same way you got rid of the whole of CPEP. You could have gotten rid of the fraud alone, because there were people in CPEP that $800 a fortnight or whatever it was critical to their existence. Okay, and you just put a red line through that and say we're not going with that again. You know, you can't run. You cannot do people that. You know, and there are signs all over of decision making where you really and truly wonder what prompted this decision. You know, there's no reason for it. There's no monetary gain. There's no you're destroying something that has been there for years, working with people, helping people, and what have you. And with the stroke of a pen, you just destroy it. No, that's not how you run a government. At least I don't think so. I think there are many other ways you can look at your situation and look at the situation that Trinidad is in, bringing all the relevant issues. Okay, that if you do X, Y is going to happen. Okay, and you need to be aware of the effect of your decisions. How are your decisions going to affect the person in the street? Okay, how they're going to buy food, how they send their children to school. You know, all of that has to be done rather than just making this blanket decision. Well, too bad. That's what the other party did, and we're not doing that. You know, that's.
It was ill-advised, and there's nothing that you see or can figure out or that has been discussed with you to make up for what you and other people see as the faults in those actions. You're not aware that there's anything that redeems itself or redeems the people who took the decisions.
No, I can't think of anything, Andy. I really, there's nothing glaring. There's nothing that jumps out to say that, yes, that is a first-class decision and fully supported. People will have to refresh my memory, but I can't think of anything. And that is not only with this administration. Huh?
Yeah.
The last administration spent 10 years. Imagine you spent 10 years and you achieve what? You shut down Petrotrin. That's your greatest achievement. If you drive through Point Lisas now, you would be surprised at the ghost town that Point Lisas has become. That jewel that Trinidad had is now a ghost town. So, you know, where are we going? Where's the forward thinking? Where are we going to be in 5 years, in 4 years, in 3 years' time? There's absolutely no planning, no anything like that. None.
You're seeing any signs of that in spite of what people who are in the government or people who support what is happening attempt to trumpet some of the action that has taken place, some of the decisions that have been made. You have an issue with some of that.
Yes, because in government, I think that there are things that you have to do. You have to be very, very mindful of how you're dealing with certain things. And I mean, I can't remember over the last year any earth-shattering decisions that were made that would actually solve a problem. Okay? You have, again, Point Lisas is a ghost town. That was a money maker for you. The issue with Venezuela is still a major issue. Nobody knows whether or not the president of Venezuela is going to be instructed to deal with the prime minister of Trinidad or anything like that. And if Trinidad does not get that dragon gas going, we have a problem. They say privately that the owners of the facilities offshore and what have you are negotiating with the Venezuelan government. Okay, well, if that is the case, then fine. All right, is that going to benefit Trinidad, or is it only going to benefit the commercial entities involved? All right, so you have that. You have the issue of crime, which is on everybody's every discussion now is the issue of crime. So you have major problems, Prime Minister. You have huge problems to deal with, and I don't know if there is the capacity within your government to be able to really and truly deal with these things in a way that we will actually see results in the short term, medium, and long term. I don't know. I don't see it at all.
And you don't think there's any redemption, there's any sign for comfort by what appears to be the sort of new fraternal arrangements or approach from Trinidad and Tobago to the United States and the current administration in the United States? And that in itself is has been a controversial issue, the way in which we sort of...
Yeah. I think the countries that have remained neutral are going to come out a lot better than the countries that are supporting the current administration. The current administration has a lot to answer for, and I don't know if that was the wisest decision to saddle up with that administration.
You're talking about the current U.S. administration. They have a lot to answer for, and that it's what I'm reading is, it's been ill-advised for us to get as close as we are with the current administration in Washington.
Yes, I mean, I would support that. You see where certain countries just say, okay, fine, thank you very much, and we'll let you know when we're ready, But our administration has obviously saddled or tied itself to the administration, the current administration in Washington, and there's a lot of questions to be answered there, to be asked and answered, a lot. And you have the midterms coming up in November, and depending on what the result of those midterms are, the current administration is basically going to be not very, how you want to call it, their hands are going to be very, very tied to get anything done. So, I don't know.
So,
again, that's a whole international issue that you have to sort out.
Yeah,
but before you make the decisions to go and saddle up with whichever group, you need to understand what you're getting yourself involved in.
So it's been ill-advised in your view, our approach to the current relations between Port of Spain and Washington. That's ill-advised.
I would say so. It's like the relationship that we have with CARICOM. Up to now, I do not know what the problem is. You might, I think, Andy, you would know what was being said and why it was being said.
Well, I think how I read it is that people in CARICOM felt that the current administration was moving in a way being embraced by and embracing the current administration in Washington, and that sort of ate away at our neutrality on a lot of stuff, and that it put us at odds with people in CARICOM and so on.
Yeah, I mean, we will never, CARICOM leaders are not going to agree with everything CARICOM is doing, but there are ways and means, there's a diplomacy serious diplomacy should be applied when you have a situation like that, rather than this fight in the daily news, which I didn't think did Trinidad any good whatsoever, So that's a whole other story there. But I mean, being the Prime Minister of a country, you have to be mindful of so many things. As much as you don't want to do it, or as much as you want to do it, you have to be mindful, smart enough to understand what the ramifications are. Where is the fallout going to come from? You can't just wake up in the morning and say, this is what we're doing, okay? Because all kinds of things are going to raise their head that are going to give you all kinds of problems, and you need to be aware of where that is going to come from. So when it does happen, that you have answers. But it seemed as though we didn't really do our homework with that CARICOM issue. At least I don't think so.
Yeah. Okay, we have to close, but let's close on going back to the central issue of crime. You think that the question really, you know, I'm troubled in asking it. Do you think it will get worse before it gets better, even where we are now?
If the what, sorry?
The crime situation in the country. You think it will get worse before it begins to get better?
Most definitely, yeah. And Andy, again, until you show the country that you have a road to go down where you're going to be able to deal with it and all aspects of it, level with the people of the country, okay? And shooting criminals and killing criminals in public spaces and what have you, that makes a bloody headline that, okay, there are people who love the bloody headlines, okay? But that does nothing, okay? Because you're not dealing with the people who are running the show, okay? Those are lackeys. Those people that you're killing in the road, those are just lackeys. Those are not the people you need to get. So you're fooling yourself with that.
All right, my friend. Thank you very much. We're going to have to leave it there. Steve Katie's speaking
Andy,
from...
great seeing you again. And thank you very much. Huh?
You're very welcome. Speaking from the heart and the head. This has been 10 Questions. I'm Andy Johnson. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.
WESN